Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Your Bish Therapist Podcast. In today's episode, we have a very special, brand new guest to the show. Please welcome from two very special podcasts, Vanderpump Robs and Halfsies. Please welcome my friend, Rob Schulte. Hi, Rob.
Hello. Hi. I'm so happy to finally be on. Not that, I've been banging on your door. You offered, I accept. I'm happy to be here. I always love chatting with you. This is exciting.
Yeah, same. Very excited. And for those who maybe have heard Rob's voice before, but you're not totally familiar, so you've had a couple of podcasts for a while, and I went on Vanderpump Rob's podcast. It feels like a long time ago, but I can't remember when it was. Was it like 4 years ago? Just kidding. It wasn't.
No, I think it was before 2025, so it doesn't matter, right? It was just
right.
in the past.
But you are a huge Southern hospitality person. You love Southern hospitality, which is one reason why I'm so glad you're here, because I have so many, I don't really cover that. And what I did was to come on your podcast, I just watched one episode of it and then we covered it. And then I was like, I should watch this. And then I just never did. But so many people that love the show love Southern hospitality too. So yeah, please just share with people just the things that you genuinely love and what you cover on your podcast and how it all started.
Absolutely. I like to say that I will cover any Bravo show that I'm currently excited about, except for Housewives. There's too much Housewives for me. I can't do it. I watch some Housewives shows. This is my mystery. The astrologer Chani Nichols, she doesn't say what her birthday is, so no one can know her sign. Well, I don't say what Housewives I watch, so that no one can know how deep I can get into Bravo. But no, I started off with just doing a Vanderpump Rules recap podcast. And then there was, something jumped me into I'm just going to start covering the current seasons. I started from season 1 and then I was like, people want to hear about the current season. So then I jumped to the current season. And
when did you start from the current season? Which current season did you start at?
I believe it was, I think it was season 10.
Oh,
because there was the break with COVID that took a long time to then get from season 9 to 10. But it wasn't a Scandival thing. It was already planned. My friend Molly was my co-host at the time. Molly had to stop being my co-host to be a mom and get married and all these things.
Rude.
No, totally fine.
Dare.
Molly was great. Molly is an incredible journalist too. So if anyone ever wants to look up Molly Schwartz's work, she's written about Vanderpump Rules. She works in podcasting. That's how I met her. But Molly and I were like, let's really do this. Let's start covering it in real time. And Tom are going to be on Winter House, so we'll cover Winter House before we go into Vanderpump Rules. And then by doing that, I was like, well, I can cover whatever Bravo shows I want. So
that's right.
I started diving into Southern Charm, Summer House,
we have
Southern
mutual
Hospitality.
Love. Yes.
And I fell in love with Southern Hospitality.
And what is it do you think about Southern Hospitality? Because this is one thing that fascinates me about what authentically drives each of us as content creators. It's just so funny. For me, I just could not get into it, but so many people are so into it. So what is it for you that draws you in specifically about that show?
And now this might end up being a long, winding road, but I think culturally, Southern Hospitality is everything Southern Charm isn't, right? But it has the aspects that people might like from Southern Charm and the aspects that people claim to always like from Vanderpump Rules. So we have a group of young people working in the service industry with interpersonal drama and relationships that don't necessarily have to revolve around work, but because they are all put in situations together like that, they're forced to be around one another. Now, that being said, the real thing, I think the thing that really locked it in for me, though, is this change in influencer culture. And most of the people who have been on Vanderpump Rules now have a hamster wheel to run inside of to stay relevant.
You're so right.
Not to, like, did you ever see Ghostbusters 2?
Oh, yes.
One, okay.
Rob,
you remember
we're
at the
a huge
beginning?
Ghostbusters family. Can I just say that? Like, my niece and nephew, we've taught them the whole song. We've dressed up as Ghostbusters for Halloween, so I am in on this comparison. Yes.
So at the beginning of Ghostbusters 2, they're doing birthday parties because no one cares about Ghostbusters. They busted all the ghosts, right? Yeah. There's nothing
They're like,
left
you
for
guys
them
are
to do.
wackadoos.
Yeah,
no one cares.
But you're like semi-celebrities, so you could do children's birthday parties like a clown. And I feel like that's kind of where Vanderpump Rules, the original class, is at, right? Except they're doing podcasts or America's Got Talent or
books,
you know,
writing books,
and look, no shade to writing books, but
no, none at all. Not at all.
But it's these side hustles, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I wasn't saying you were doing that, but I do think in terms of Southern hospitality, these people, their goal isn't to just be TV stars, whereas it became pretty apparent pretty quickly that everyone on Vanderpump Rules did not want to have any other job but be a TV person and have that easy access.
Right.
And that could change. We've only done 3 seasons of Southern Hospitality, and this is about the spot where things started changing for Vanderpump Rules. But it really feels like this is my job for 3 months out of the year, but otherwise I'm going to be a personal trainer. Otherwise, I'm going to get into the service industry in this way. Otherwise, I'm going to do this. Now, a few of them seem to be influencer-y types, but it doesn't feel the same way right now. And that's what's really locking me in, because I do think that generational difference too, because these people are still like late 20s. They've seen what can happen to the Tom Sandoval's, the Katie Maloney's, of the world. And now they get to learn from that. Like, is that what I want to be in 10 years? And I think they're planning accordingly.
I actually really appreciate what you just talked about, because I was doing a podcast with Lindsay and Brady from Recap Rodeo. And we were talking about kind of in the same vein of how Next Gen New York City we felt was better than Roni because there was like increased authenticity. So kind of what I hear you saying is with Southern Hospitality, it's not just mini Scheanas who are just trying to be influencers. These are people who it rings a little bit more authentic. Sure. Are they filming a show? Are they on the show? Are they utilizing the show for opportunities and things? But what I hear you saying is that there's an authenticity that you appreciate, which, to be honest, I do too, because what Lindsay and Brady and I talked about as well is like these Housewives franchises. I totally hear what you're saying about your love-hate relationship there, because we were talking about how, like, for example, some of these franchises that are in their 18th year, it's like culturally there's such a shift because it has to get bigger and uglier and, more monstrous. And, it's just like it becomes this rock gathering moss downhill, so to speak. Yep. So that makes sense to me. And I think I wonder partly if I'm like, am I just too old for this now that I'm middle-aged? I'm like, am I too old now to watch these 20-somethings, like the VPR new season? I don't know how I feel about that. What do you think?
Well, first of all, you're never too old to enjoy something new. I just had a birthday, and it was a significant one. And
do you want to share?
Yeah, I turned 25.
You look great for your age.
I turned 41 years old, and
you're a baby.
Tell that to my back. No, I'm just kidding. I did not watch Next Gen, and Brady and Lindsay both said I would love it. I'll tell you, I know I will. When I watch it, I know I'll like it.
Yeah,
I don't know any of the people. I know Brooks, I guess, from SLC, but it's not like I was like, I gotta see what Brooks Marks is up to, right? And I never really watched Jersey. See, I'm leaving my little breadcrumbs of the Housewives I have watched.
I'm listening, Rob. I'm going to find, by the end of this episode, I'm going to know exactly. I'm catching the clues.
And so, I didn't really call to me because also, and I've said this before, I think to Lindsay and Brady as well, Next Gen NYC does not tell me what the show is about. Now,
it's the dumbest name. Name.
Vanderpump Rules doesn't really tell us what the show's about either, but you can context clues. Lisa Vanderpump, restaurant. Next Gen NYC is a bunch of young people, like the promo photos are in New York City. Great. I don't care about that. I care about people I know that are going to have to fight about shifts or who's doing what or who's dating who. And I just don't know what the show's about. A bunch of up and coming youngsters. Okay, great.
Youngsters.
Doesn't seem very exciting, but I'm sure it is. And everyone does say it's great. They didn't land the plane for
properly.
Me through. Yeah. The advertising didn't work on me, but one of these days I'll go back and watch and I'll say, oh yeah, I liked it from the beginning.
Listen, that's more than fair. And here's the only reason I ask about that is just because it to me is a good example of what a new younger cast gives when they're not completely hooked on fame, right? When they're just living their lives and being regular people and the show isn't their life and they're not draped in Gucci from head to toe or whatever, it's before it becomes a costume, before it becomes a persona. That's what I tend to like. But I do agree the name was terrible and it wasn't, I don't know if it was promoted, it didn't explain exactly what it was, but because what I love most about it is seeing Meredith Marks, because on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, to me, Meredith always seemed very histrionic, which I personally can't stand. That's just something that annoys me. But on Next Gen, we get to see a different side of her with Brooks. She's very sweet and they're very codependent, which is funny and a little cute, but also wow, we really got to work on that. So you just got to see, I guess, a different side of Meredith, Seth, and Brooks, if that's what people care about. So
I will say I am friends with Seth on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, there you go.
He popped up and I was like, yeah, I better connect. I may need someone who worked at Big Lots one day in my professional portfolio. I will say though, with the new cast of Vanderpump Rules, I have met one of the new cast members years ago at a barbecue at Peter's house, and she's awesome. Now, I don't know what's happened on the filming, right? I don't know how this person's going to be portrayed, but she was super cool to me, very nice person, but also didn't take any shit from Peter or anyone else at this backyard barbecue, and could give it as well as was given sort of person. I was when I found out she's going to be, and I'm keeping the name quiet, but when I found out she's going to be in the new cast, I was like, that's perfect. She is perfect for this show.
She'll do great.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that somehow they will probably find a way to try and force something that isn't natural, but
that's kind of what I'm afraid of. I don't think
producer Jerry is on this season, who I have a lot of problems with when it comes to Vanderpump Rules.
Now, is producer Jerry, so one of the things, by the way, that we're going to talk about for those listening is we're going to do a really fun thing today, which is a VPR Rewind. We're going to talk about season 8, episode 17.
Yes.
Of Vanderpump Rules. However, one of the things that I found when I was doing some research to get to that point is that the producer of this season that we're watching, season 8, it was revealed that they purposely edited Scheana in a bad light and then they were fired for that.
That was one editor, but not the showrunner, producer person. And I'm so glad you brought that up because maybe that's I think that the scene in question is an episode that comes up just after, but you can see remnants of it in our episode and previous episodes in season 8. But there is one thing that crucially, if you did not know that this happened, is so the word toxic gets thrown out a lot these days, but it is disgustingly toxic to do that. I don't care if you don't like someone or not. And maybe we should just say it. There's a scene.
Yeah, let's say it.
where, and it's not in this episode, but where it's edited to look like Scheana is flirting with Stassi's younger brother.
Yes. That
disgusting.
It was in this episode.
That was in this episode? Oh,
that
it was.
Scene
That's
was
right.
in the episode that we're going to talk about.
Yes, it was in this episode. I've been watching them back to back to back recently for my podcast. So, but yes, that is in this episode because Bo proposes to Stassi in this episode. And that's at the dinner.
Looking for mausoleums. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll get into all of that because I just, when I was doing some research on the episode, I thought, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And then when I saw the scene with Scheana, which, we'll get there and we'll talk about it, I was like, oh, these people are trying to make her look like a child predator. It was wild. It was a very wild scene. And so the person you're talking about is a different person.
Yeah, this is the guy who got brought. I think he took a few seasons off or was working on other shows, but was brought back for season 10. He like started off as like a showrunner early on, and then like showrunner is a big role, but like also then became like a producer and showrunner, like kind of to the point where like in season 10 he was like running the shop, right? And season 11, and then both seasons of The Valley. So he's the guy who you hear talking to Jax or anyone in the confessionals, right? And I feel like The Valley has its own problems that have been talked about ad nauseum and toxicity. And I've never had the job. I don't know exactly who's responsible for what. But what I do know is that if you're running a show, that's not how you end season 11 of Vanderpump Rules. You know what I mean? Like there are some crucial mistakes being made. And then if you even start tiptoeing into domestic violence, that's not a storyline. That's not a storyline that needs to be played up for stories. That is we're shutting things down. If this is a route we're going, let's make it crystal clear. At the beginning of episodes, you break the fourth wall, you do whatever you need to do to make this happen without the way that they had it done, I think, in season 2. And I'm not even like, I'm pretty lenient on reality TV. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
But when you cross a line, you cross a line, and it's glaring.
Yes. And I'm grateful to hear you and some other content creators say that because, as a therapist, obviously, this has been my Super Bowl. This is what I'm here to do because it is abuse, what we're seeing. And I'm disgusted with how all of these people are aware. They're watching this, they're seeing this, and they're still trying to make it a storyline instead of posting domestic violence resources, getting Brittany some help, shutting things down, doing the right thing. And for me, that's what I feel I've been really angry and talking on my podcast about, like, this thing we love so much, what is happening to it? Because it disheartens me as a woman, as an advocate, as a therapist, as a human, that this is what constitutes entertainment.
Let me ask you a quick question as a therapist, not my therapist, but as a therapist. It's like that TikTok guy. He's like, I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. Ask me whatever, Therapy speak is on the rise.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm sure is if it's a pain in my craw sometimes, I'm sure it's a major pain in yours.
Major.
And I feel like there's this like level of audience member now that is like, I took 1 semester of psychology and like occasionally see a mental health professional. So now I can leave comments or make content based on the knowledge I have, which at the end of the day is not as much as a licensed professional.
For sure.
I believe that it gives, trying to like not be mean about this because maybe no one has listened to my show and I can be really dry and cocky and make fun of people, but I'm also like a serious guy. And sometimes the tone of my voice it's hard to tell the difference, I've been told.
Right.
But the difference here is I just quite frankly get really annoyed with people who want to psychoanalyze reality TV because they think they know what's best, when in actuality that's creating a bubble of problematic language around actual serious topics. And it's hard because it's like pulling a rubber band so far that like you mean well. I get that you mean well, but it's diluting serious problems, I think.
And I couldn't agree more, obviously, because, one of the things I talk about a lot is, you hear the term du jour is talking about a narcissist. And it's like, it drives me crazy because that's not a thing. We all have traits and tendencies, narcissistic traits and tendencies. All of us do. But like a narcissist isn't a thing. Like, what do you mean by that? Let's talk about this. I saw the other day, there was a person who had a ton more views than I get on something on Instagram going on about Jax being a family annihilator. And I thought to myself, wow, that's super irresponsible. And so what frustrates me, right, is that I come here with this lens as a licensed therapist. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that I know these people. Like I don't. This is just the lens that I see this with. And people come for me all the time. They hate me so much. And here you are with these people out here who are, they Googled what a family annihilator is and they're just reading it like they have some sort of understanding. And it's like, that also is dangerous because do I like Jax? No. Is he an abuser? Absolutely, for sure. Like that's undeniable at this point. But we also have to be responsible for the things that we're saying, which include not talking above our pay grade, which is like, we should only be talking about the things that we really know about. And a lot of people really think what they know is greater than it is. And so that is my frustration for sure.
Well, it's like, it also bleeds into the like, my diagnosis as personality trait, right?
Right.
Which is dangerous too. Because I have been given a diagnosis of some sort, this defines exactly who I am. And since it's my lived experience, I can now talk about this as if I'm an expert because I live it every day. And that's dangerous as well.
It is. And again, I can say this. So I always kind of joke, but it's true. I'm a professional and I'm a patient, right? I manage complex PTSD. I have depression. I'm living with a chronic cancer. So I know what it is to be a professional on one side of the couch and a patient on the other side. And while my own personal experiences have informed my education, right? They've informed my education, informed my clinical skills. It's helped me see a lot of all sides of an issue. What people make the mistake of doing is when you're a patient and you're being treated for something, you still have blind spots. So you move from a place of trauma, and that's why you end up hurting people and it comes out sideways because you're moving from a place of like your perspective. But, I don't know if lots of people know this, but our perspectives aren't the only ones that matter.
Surprise, surprise. Someone out there might like Tom Sandoval. Don't ask me how, but they might. And it's insane. Or Jax for that matter. But it's disheartening. The fandom is, I think they're in a place of growth. We'll put it that way. I think that, I don't know if you've seen the movie Eddington. It's all I can talk about lately.
No, I have not.
I highly, highly suggest you see that movie in theaters if you're able. It's about to leave theaters, I think, at this point. But it is a movie that takes place in a small town in New Mexico during March 2020 or May 2020. So during lockdown. A lot of people are saying like it's too soon to be I don't want to be thinking about COVID, right? It's too soon. Yeah. But really, I left that movie going, there's a lot of stuff I've compartmentalized about COVID that this movie brought back out. And I think that the undercurrent of that movie are the big dramatic effects that COVID has on. And that is not like the Bravo fandom. And some people may think this sounds silly. Mm-hmm. They are not immune to the trauma of the pandemic and what it did to our brains, whether or not you had COVID or not. And
absolutely.
I think that we are like Bravo fandom is a microcosm of what's going on in other pockets of the world because of that. The way we see people hyperfixating on stuff like this and being really upset, I think it has something to do. I'm working on a bigger project, but like I do think that that is a movie that I think you would really respect in that regard, for sure.
I definitely appreciate the thoughtfulness, and I can agree that, in addition to having a degree in clinical psychology, minored in sociology as well, because I think that, groups and culture to me, like all of it is interesting, individuals and groups. But when we were going through the pandemic, I did remember saying to myself, this is a shift that is going to be written about, that it's going to take time, right? Like with anything when there's cultural shifts. But I think the psychological impacts on individuals, on groups, on the world, on entertainment, on everything, it just changed it all so much. So I definitely appreciate that heads up. And that is something I will definitely try to check out, because it did change everything. And again, whether you had it or not, I had it. I was lucky to survive because, I was undergoing active cancer treatment at the time. But what I can say is it changed my brain for sure, without a doubt, in ways that like chemotherapy, immunotherapy, all this other stuff, it didn't even touch that. It was like a chemical bomb to my brain that my brain just like never was the same.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But thank you for that recommendation. And you know what? Let's get into it. Let me read the summary for the episode that we're about to cover, which, by the way, so Vanderpump Rules Season 8, Episode 17 was titled First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage. The summary is that Beau stuns Stassi with a quirky but romantic engagement proposal. Danica and the SUR staff go to head-to-head with Sandoval Schwartz and the team from Tom Tom during an epic softball game to determine restaurant dominance. And the one thing that I'll say is interesting is that when I was rewatching this, the cast and everything, it was like before the apocalypse, right? We had all of these couples who were still couples. We had Brittany and Jax. We had Ariana and Tom. We had Katie and Tom. We had Kristen, Dodie, and Carter. We had Lala and Randall. And it was just wild as I was watching this. I was like, oh my God, all these couples are together and they're now in really bad places. It's wild.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a quick question. And this is not me trying to got you or anything. Because I had a different title for this episode. Same description, but different title.
Huh.
Death do us not part.
Okay, so here's the thing. I looked it up on Peacock.
Huh?
And
this is not the first time this has happened to me, by the way. This is why I'm like very.
Is that right?
Yeah. So either way, same episode, the softball, the Beau proposal, all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And I did use AI to like get a synopsis of maybe AI. Listen, AI goes into psychosis. This is what.
It's actually one of the topics of this week's Halfsies episode is AI psychosis. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that. So there's an accidental plug, honey, because but you know why? Here's why I've been coming to terms with this too. A little side note. There are chatbots in mental health spaces that are using AI in very serious scenarios where they should not be. And it is hurting people's mental health and it is causing problems. You cannot replace humans with computers when it comes to therapists. You can't do it.
Nope. I know we're about to talk about the episode, but there is a big thing going on TikTok right now with this woman named Kendra who has fallen into AI psychosis because she's convinced herself that her therapist was in love with her and stayed with her. But it's the more she tells the story, the more it's like, yeah. And then I talked to Claude and then I talked to ChatGPT and then the ones that were like, verifying her story and the one that was playing devil's advocate. It's very scary. Very
gosh, Rob, that is scary.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad we accidentally touched on this topic because you and I will have to talk about that more because it's like with all these new shifts that happen, which AI is one of them, it's like the Wild West until you get some rules and regulations. But the whole AI psychosis thing, it's like you cannot use that. Like, it's great to use AI for example, looked up a little summary of this little epi-ep.
Sure.
That's helpful. It's helpful to write a resume. It's helpful for a lot of things, but it cannot replace.
It's not your therapist, for
doctors, right. Like we still need humans. Okay. We can't forget about humans. So All right.
AI is not going to take your job. Just the people who know how to use it correctly might. That's
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a guaranteed job forever, become a therapist, because people will always need therapists, and we can't, chatbots can't do it. So,
yep.
All right. So the season 8 cast, again, like I said, it was truly, I was watching this and I was like, these were the best days of our lives. These were the VPR days where it was like Ariana, Brittany, Jax, James Kennedy, Katie Maloney, Kristen Doty, Lala, Scheana, Stassi, Tom Sandoval, Tom Schwartz, Lisa Vanderpump. And then it also included Bo, who proposed to Stassi, and obviously now they're married, Max, Brett, Dana, Rachel, a.k.a. Raquel, Peter, Charlie, Danica, and Brett. Woo! That's a cast. That's a cast.
Now, whenever I would bring up to people that I was watching season 8, they'd be like, oh, that's the worst season. And I have to disagree upon this rewatch for my Patreon and main episode.
Samesies. Yeah.
What I will say is, so the whole first half of the season is Jax and Brittany's wedding. And that is really good TV because it's insane, especially with everything we know now. But you've got the homophobic and transphobic pastor they have to fire.
That's
and then Jax and Sandoval get in a huge fight where Jax clocks exactly who we find out Sandoval is in season 10 and 11.
Mm.
We get the Lance Bass, we get the Kentucky Castle, we get all of that drama. But then after the wedding, it is kind of like, well, what the hell do we do for the rest of the season? And it's in these kind of episodes where there's 2 episodes prior to this where it's like, all right, we go to Vegas for Katie and Schwartz's second wedding, but it's really just a commercial for Lisa's new Caesar's suite.
Yeah, her new restaurant. Oh.
Yeah. There's the girls have a wine event that is just a fight. It's all very awkward. And then we get this episode where there's actually, I will still say, not a complete episode. We have this fun stuff with the proposal, but then the last half of the episode is a softball game. So,
right. It was so disjointed. Also, I feel like at this time, there's just so many people on the cast that it was they were like, we don't know what we're doing here.
Well, this was supposed to be the last season before the original Valley, right? So it was going to be introduce these new people, then Stassi and Jax and everyone who bought houses will go on. But then they all got fired for terrible behavior.
Right. And can you remind everyone what everyone got fired for?
Well, take a wild guess, everyone listening. Guess what? They wrote some terrible things online. Stassi in particular went on podcasts and bragged about how her and Kristen called the cops on a woman on Faith because they saw a woman who they convinced themselves was Faith in a police video. But really, they were just mad at her because of the Jax and Brittany situation, pretty much showing their bias and racist behavior. Jax and Brittany were asked not to return, and I think that was a nicer way of not firing them for whatever reason.
Well, Jax gets a lot of breaks with that. This is now his second break, right?
Yeah.
He got to leave on his own, and now he got to leave on his own after being an abuser on TV. So make that make sense. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, Jax will be back in season 4. That's why.
I will literally...
he's taking this season off.
Rob, literally, I swear to you, I will quit this show and Bravo. If this man is ever back on TV, you heard it here first, Your Bish is done. I am not kidding.
You're gonna be done. That man will be back in season 4. I guarantee it. And yeah,
I'm not. Be right.
Look, I think that you are have very valid reasons there. I will say, no one's beyond redemption. X just doesn't seem like he's a man who wants to have it or wants to do the work. I'd love to be proven wrong, right? I'd love for him to be proven wrong. But I'm right there with you. I think they'll probably try and bring in a Sandoval, and so that they can have a fight in season 4.
Well,
when they
there was rumors that they were looking at Tom Sandoval for the Valley and some other folks. And that wasn't there a rumor that Scheana and Lala are definitely going to be on next season or something like that?
I've never heard anything official, but I think that's what people are leaning towards. Look, and I'm not a Scheana hater. I think that like a lot of people give her a lot of grief, but Scheana makes good TV, and Scheana is, at the end of the day, harmless compared to a lot of people. And I think there's, look, here's me.
For sure.
I'm going to be throwing out some therapy words real quick, so don't get angry. But I think there's a lot of transference happening with Scheana Shay.
Oh, I love that transference. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so in specifically in this episode, or you just feel in general?
I think in general, I think that it's easier for people. Well, and this is societies, right? I think it's really easy to focus on one thing that you don't like than like a systemic problem.
Sure,
and
yeah.
I think that Scheana has qualities that have been shown on this show that are not very like ideal. And I think some people have seen or have had a friend that was like Scheana, and they are no longer friends with that person, so they do not like Scheana. And I think in a different world, that could have been Ariana. It just didn't happen to be Ariana, right?
Well, and the reason it didn't happen to be Ariana is because she became the golden one because of what Tom did. Like, people have to understand, Ariana seems like a wonderful person. I don't know her. I've never met her. She seems great. But society put her up on this pedestal. Like you said, when women get cheated on, they projected all of their problems and stuff onto Ariana. And they were like, she represents all wronged women. And we put her up on this pedestal. And so it's not that she doesn't deserve things. I just think that societally, everyone made her a queen. And, listen, good for her.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I totally am with you. And she was an audience proxy for so long, so it's easier.
Right. But so essentially what Rob is saying is that, like, and I talk about this on the show a lot, is that when we're dealing with stuff in our personal lives, we see Scheana or someone on TV and we project our stuff, we transfer our stuff onto them, and then we see things in them that we don't like, but it's really more about us. And so we'll start out with the beginning of the episode. Is that it's so funny because the episode before this, Beau and Stassi got into like this insane fight, and he was going to propose to her the next day. And I remember watching this like in real time, like when the season had started. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so funny. She was just like so awful to him. And then he had this whole plan they were looking at mausoleums because it was like Stassi's way of trying to get Beau to commit, because he told her he wasn't going to propose this year. So she thought in her mind, well, if we buy a mausoleum together, he's with me for life. And I was like, that's an interesting way to get a commitment. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very great storyline, Stassi, and we know you're good for like making that. And
yeah,
it's also one of those things where like in that previous episode, she's also like, okay, well, we're also like not trying to have kids. So one way or another, we're going to be together because we know we want children. But if that happens before marriage, well, we're going to have a family. And I think it's played up for the cameras, of course, but it is the whole Kristen fight in general. I have a lot of problems with here, but that really comes into play after the actual proposal. I think that Beau did a good job with the proposal in general. I think the idea of doing it there, having your friend hide the ring, like I think Stassi in the back of her mind knew Beau was going to be proposing this season, but I don't think she knew it was going to happen here. I think she thought this was just like B-roll footage they were filming.
Literally. And that's why I think it was brilliant the way that he did it, because to me, it seemed like she was authentically shocked and like, is this happening right now? Which I love, because someone like Stassi, because the minute he put the ring on her finger, she literally morphed into a bridezilla on camera. Like, it was just the wildest transformation. She's like, let's go to Italy. We got to do this. We got to do that. I'm like, you've been engaged for 12 seconds. This is wild. Yep. But you could tell that he did a good job of surprising her, because I imagine that's really hard to do. But it was sweet. He was like, had a friend leave it up by the bench in this really interesting case that it looked like an old bell. And, You know, the ring was gorgeous and it's a family heirloom. And she literally like just took it out of the box. He's like, isn't that my job?
I also clocked that after it, she was like, I'm engaged, motherfuckers, which is a callback to when Scheana gets engaged and Scheana shouts down at her and Shay, you're engaged, motherfuckers. It's like, damn, there really are callbacks here. Yeah.
Dang, that's pretty good. I did not catch that. My gosh. Yeah. So then, of course, we see Lisa throws this huge engagement party, which here's the thing. Lisa Vanderpump, for me, I'm not a fan of Lisa Vanderpump. I think that
she makes it hard.
Yeah, for me, she does. Like, listen, she's got, I think her and Ken, they have such a sweet relationship. I love how much she loves dogs at her beautiful home, that it's, I mean, all of it. I admire all that. But she does make it really hard, I think, specifically how she treats the male employees versus the female. Just, you know, she's definitely got some misogynistic internalized stuff there that I hate to see women have. And, you know, she just seems really like, you know, because I was someone who watched Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, of course. And there's just something that seems really disingenuous about her. And it's like her way or the highway. And I think that's why she doesn't have a lot of connections to anyone who's not Ken. Because Ken, what I've noticed, is always like an echo chamber for Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is, like, I've been with my husband for 23 years. And like, you have to have someone who lets you know when you're being an asshole, who lets you know when you're wrong, who lets you know when you're like speaking out of turn or just like whatever. And Lisa and Ken, they don't have that relationship. So I just think Lisa, because she's a boss, because of being with Ken, she doesn't have anyone who really challenges her. And then she certainly has escaped accountability from, you know, the jump on Bravo. But anyway, she throws this big party to celebrate her engagement, and she surprised Stassi with her mom and her dad, who were divorced and rarely together at the same time. So that was really sweet to see. And Stassi seemed really surprised.
And then we get that weird scene with Scheana that we had talked about earlier.
Yes. So let's explain.
It is, well, go ahead. Sorry.
So I'll just say really quickly, Scheana is sitting down at the lunch next to Stassi's brother, who at this point I think was 14.
Something
Does that sound right? Something like 14. But clearly
under 18, let's put it out there.
Oh, and very under. Like, you look at him and he's like, you know, he's like a sweet boy that's growing and becoming his own person. And, you know, he's a teenager, but he's not an adult. And you see Scheana sitting next to him and she's drinking her drink and she's using this vocal fry that she loves to use. And the way that it was edited, it really looked like she was flirting with this kid. She's like, so do you have a girlfriend? Or, you know, just like the way she was going about it. But now we know that it was edited to look a certain way, which it did. It looked to me like, Scheana, come on, this guy, he's a child.
It's specifically cut with confessional interviews as well. So it's like, so do you have a girlfriend? And it's like, the youngest I would ever date someone is 21.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like
That's right.
Specifically edited to evoke a certain type of experience when watching it, which is inappropriate. Look at how lame Scheana is. I can't believe she's doing this. And my biggest thing here is like, to any critical viewer, like, obviously, this is someone trying to make Scheana look bad. Like, it's very apparent that this is not what's going on and could happen to anyone. Mm-hmm. And so to go forward from this point, let's say you are naive, and I don't mean stupid, I mean someone is naive. They do not know how these shows are made. They don't get it. They don't have all of the pieces. That's fine. But the moment it's actually presented that an editor did this on purpose, and you find out about that, it makes the discussion of these shows so much more nuanced going forward. And I'm not a Janet fan per se, but it's just as easy to say in the Valley that the only things cut together from Janet is a specific storyline of her inserting herself in everyone else's business.
That's right.
Now, do I think that that's what Janet was doing? Yes, because she's also admitted that in other interviews.
Right.
But the blind faith of what we're seeing is reality is frightening because we have this moment now where someone admitted to it and got fired for it. And so conveniently, when we want to call that into an argument as a fandom, we can. But when we don't like a person and don't want to have that, we can leave it out.
And I think it's, to your point of what we had talked about earlier, is that we all have our own perspectives, our own that are formed by our life experiences, the things that happen to us. And when you have someone on a show who's responsible for making a storyline based on one person who may or may have certain issues with that cast member, it's never going to pan out to be reality. It's that person's reality. It's that production editor, whatever you call them. And so I think that is one of the things that you become acutely aware of on these shows, is that it's Franken editing, and it happens to everybody based on these certain perspectives that people have. Some people, like, I'm not a Janet hater either. I don't have like a ton of strong feelings for folks because I look at people like everybody's human except for Jax. To me, that's a different level. I have no empathy for him whatsoever. And it's rare to hear me say that. I think everyone deserves redemption and empathy, not him currently. But that's
and you
just
also
my
don't
opinion.
have to give it,
Right. Not from me anyway. He can get it from his other people. It's not going to be from me. But I do think that it's fair to say that, these people are edited into characters, are edited into storylines, and it's based on sometimes very myopic views of people who want the world to see them a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And I'm not saying like no one on these shows are perfect. And I'm sure Scheana has annoyed the hell out of plenty of people. That doesn't mean someone can't just like have fun on their workday and be like, oh my God, I'm going to clip together all these sound bites because this now makes this scene more fun for me to work on and entertaining for the people who are approving of this, which is crazy.
It is crazy. And also, can I note that this person got fired for this, but Jax abused his wife over and over and he was never fired and he got to walk away? Can I just point that out?
Well, and also this one person did this and now we sit here going, and that hasn't happened to anyone. No other editors have the ability to do this. Like, of course it's happening.
Of course.
And of course, like, Bravo skews misogynistic. Like, it's also been a big trouble for me in this season because I am not a Dana fan.
Yeah.
I'm just like, she's never like, I'm not like a Jax fan. I'm not like any of these, but there are certain elements to me, like working in comedy for so long, where like I also, like I'll see like the jokes Dana make and I'm like, this is not for me. But then I have to also pull back a little bit because I'm like, but Bravo makes it so easy to like dislike women on these shows that like I can't fall into that trap. But I can say, Dana, that joke's not landing for me. You know what I mean?
That's fair. The jokes aren't landing. It is funny because with Dana, I appreciated her, but I know what you mean. Like, I think she was trying really hard, which again, if I was going to be featured on TV, who's to say I think we would all do the same thing, right? It's like, here's the camera, do your shtick. And she did it. And it just didn't kind of, and so it's interesting.
She's notorious for being like very, very confident. Mm-hmm. And that is such a hard row to toe, or whatever that phrase is.
Hard line to toe, I think.
Toe, yes.
I think.
It's like marching to the beat of your own drum. That's also a phrase I screw up and have to think about. But it's such a hard row to toe because, of course, you want to come off as confident and cool and collected. But there's that certain level where you can also clock like, well, this confidence is so over the top that it's like you're hiding a little bit of shyness or not very confident. It's that like faux
like
confidence.
Overcompensating a little bit. Yeah. And so it was interesting because speaking of Dana, there was like a period before Scheana met Brock. And obviously now there's like a whole, after she released her book, there's a whole lot of information there. But there was like this love triangle between Max, Brett, and Dana. And then like Scheana was involved with that too.
Yeah, because like before filming this season, Scheana and Max had like hooked up and gone out briefly. And then
she bought him an Apple Watch.
Yeah, she bought him an Apple Watch. And then Scheana and Brett like had a quasi thing. I don't think they ever actually hooked up, but they like were hanging out before filming. And then the show starts with her like the season starts with her hooking up with Max. And then she thinks Max cheats on her, even though they very much were not exclusive. And that is like hammered in the episodes. And then she finds out that he didn't actually cheat on her. And she's like, oh yeah, and we weren't exclusive. The timelines don't add up. And Max is like, no thanks. I don't need that in my life right now. She's like, okay, I'm going to ask Brett out.
Right. So then they both move on to Brett.
And then Scheana's just like trying to talk to her. She's like, this is weird. And like, from my perspective, reading between the lines, it's kind of like Scheana being like, I already did this. This is not a good idea. But also, it's really weird because I did this. And I know what it's like because it's like, oh, now Max is going to be like, you're going to his friend, you're going to the coworker, you're going to the cast member. And like, now I'm also pointing out that like, isn't this weird? And what they're not saying is this just for the show? Is this just for the show? Because if it is, it's very, very clear. And if it's not, we need to make sure that everyone knows that, or you are going to get in a world of hurt.
Right.
Online.
Well, and then the episode after this, the preview was Scheana had Brett, like she did that like bedroom, like faux sex scene with, that was like the next episode after this. And I was just like, oh, Scheana, you're so messy. So
well, it's
messy.
Acting. It's just acting.
Right. Good as gold, honey. But one thing that I love seeing Jiggy because even though I'm not a huge Vanderpump fan, I love all her animals. I just want them for my own. And you got to see sweet little Jigster. And here's the other interesting thing. Speaking of Scheana, Sheena's aunt, of course, like all roads come back to Scheana Shay. Okay. Sheena's aunt, you find out in this episode, was a Rockford Peach. And if you don't know what a Rockford Peach is, that is the women's female baseball team that was featured in a league. Well, it was about a league of their own. It wasn't the real team, but it was based on that. I'm not explaining it well. And of course, you see Scheana like throwing her softball and you see like this old picture of her like aunt who was a Rockford Peach. And I was like, all roads lead back to Scheana. That was wild.
Scheana is, lover or hater, she makes television and has like mysteries that are still left to be discovered. And this was one of the good ones.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't, on the Valley this year, she didn't really show up to much or make an impact. But I obviously, like after, her book came out and we found out about the whole Brock cheating reveal. I mean, I would imagine that next season on the Valley we'll get some more of this digging for good as gold, whatever we're going to find out about.
Here's what I
don't know.
I need season 3 of the Valley to go summer house mode. And like, I need 70% of the cast gone and really hone on who the show is about and bring in some supporting characters that might be able to give us some crucial storylines in future seasons. And
what does that look like for you?
I say keep.
See, it's hard.
So many
I
people
know.
I don't like, but I will say keep Jesse Lally. I think he's a creep, but he's not dangerous, right? Jax is dangerous. Yeah. Jesse Lally doesn't seem to be dangerous at this point. He's not a good person, but I think he can make good TV. I think you keep Janet for the same reasons. She makes, I mean, arguably, people were talking more about Janet than they were Jax, which is insane.
That is such a solid point. Do you understand how wild someone has to be for them to be talked about more than Jax? That is a very solid point. Yeah.
I heard a rumor that Brittany might be getting let go too, and I think it's just a rumor. Like, I don't think Brittany's going anywhere.
To be. she's like the biggest person on the show. I feel like now she's the number one guy in the group.
Yeah, but her storylines have always revolved around Jax's shadow. So keeping her will allow her the space to, maybe if she's available to be the star of a show, now's the time, right?
Come into your own, see if you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I made a TikTok about hearing that rumor, people were like, no, get rid of Janet instead. And I'm like, Bravo's never going to do that. She's good TV.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I really think that between that, like you keep Kristen, you keep Brittany, you keep Jesse Lally, you keep Janet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we really need Jason.
But you can't have Janet without Jason. They're like so codependent.
I know, but I didn't think he will have a smaller, diminished role or an exploded one. But I think he's in the weird gray zone right now.
Right.
I think Zach's got to stay. If Jasmine stays, they're going to need to she needs to have a significant discussion, like point on the show. Like Jasmine, but there's the whole Danny situation.
I know.
Valid was more about Danny than it is about Jasmine. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
Because there were I go back to the wine scene in the Valley where Jasmine and Melissa actually explained to Danny, like, more than that, it's like bad to touch a woman when she doesn't want to be touched. Like the actual social implications of you doing that as well.
Right. But don't you think it's so interesting that scene that was Jasmine's, they kept not showing it? It was just a flashback. And I just feel like they used Jasmine and Melissa like token gay women and discarded them. That's how I feel. And I didn't like it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think I don't want Jasmine to lose her job on this show, but I'm not strong. I'm not confident in Bravo in like providing them the space to have a storyline that's going to be compelling. And that's what I want. But, other than that, like Danny and Nia, I honestly think they can go. Like, I don't think they're really bringing much to the show either.
Yeah.
Either way, that's what I'm saying. So I guess I've kept like more than half the cast, but it is, I think if we had to keep people, Kristen, Janet, Brittany, Jesse Lally are the people to keep.
Right. The main, right. And then everyone else could kind of be like accoutrement, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, we're going to find out and it'll be interesting when we do find out. But was there anything else, Rob, about this episode that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
The last thing I'll say about season 8, episode 7, just to back up to what I was saying about how this second half of the season kind of falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough that this season gets the look of it's bad because of all the new people. Because Charlie's great, and Charlie stays on through season 10. Yeah. Danica was awesome, and it's too bad she didn't get more seasons. I think Max is actually good for the group. He seems like a bad dude, but like obviously we know sucks. Katie hooks up with him in season 11. So is he still around? Like, so he's actually seems to be part of the group. Brett, no thanks. Dana, no thanks. And I think this season suffers because people just remember those folks. Like, oh, they really tried to like pull one over on us. But
right.
The whole first half is great. It's crumbling here. I think towards the end we get some really good stuff though, because like Sandoval and Jax go at it again. And this, I'll stand by this. The finale of this season was the first time when watching Vanderpump Rules that I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I have to wait another year until I get it. Because the finale of this season is the one where Jax is like screaming at Lisa and he's like, it's my show.
That's right. And that's what got him fired the first time.
Yes.
And it's funny.
Not that, but I think that didn't do him any favors.
Well, you're right. That didn't help. Yeah. But then cut to like the Valley season 2, where we find out that during that time, Jax was actually torturing Brittany because he was fired and she was the breadwinner and his teeny tiny little ego couldn't handle that.
Yep.
So, and so I appreciate you getting me back into like that VPR mode. It was really fun, for an episode to do that. So Rob, let everybody know where they can find you, what you cover, and what they can look forward to right now from your shows?
For sure. So the biggest way to find everything is to support the show on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Vanderpump Robs. You get absolutely everything, full length, ad-free video, all of that. But I understand that's not for everyone. And quick tip, folks, if you do sign up for Patreon, though, you can get a feed that you can play in whatever podcast player you like. So you don't even have to use the Patreon app.
That's true.
If that's not for you, Vanderpump Robs, wherever you get podcasts, and I usually put previews to the episodes that are, look, you're not going to get a full-length episode unless it's very special on the main free feed, no matter what, but you get a significant chunk of it, and you get smaller chunks of the bonus episodes. So like season 8 is a Patreon exclusive, but I'll still usually put like 15 or 20 minutes of those episodes up. This will be a full-length episode because I'm doing it as a feed drop so that anyone who's not familiar with your podcast can now go over to Your Bish Therapist and get all of your episodes. What you can look for at the moment, we're kind of taking a little bit of a Bravo break, except for these old VPR episodes. So we just did an episode as of this recording on the pilot of Viva La Bam, which was
I've watched that show.
Blast. One of the funnest episodes I've recorded in months.
That's awesome.
We're also going to be watching My Life as Liz, which was a short-lived MTV reality show about a punk rock girl in a small Texas town. And I will probably be alternating those, but the primary focus is going to be Viva La Bam, and I've got some fun episodes of that coming up. So if you want to get the taste, go listen to me on Apple. I recently lost all of my Apple followers, reviews, and ratings due to a catastrophic user error that was not done by me, folks.
Not yours. That's right. Wasn't Rob's. No.
I recently took the show independent, and there was an accident when transferring it to my ownership. So if you are not a Patreon person, try and leave me 5 stars or go follow on Apple, and I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa, too, for having me on.
Oh my gosh, Rob, of course. Thank you for coming on. This has been so fun. We're definitely going to have to do this again. I think going back to old shows is so brilliant and it's so interesting. And going outside of Bravo is so necessary. But I've talked to my audience a bunch about the importance of reviews. And I know that was a really hard thing for you. So if you could all do Rob a huge favor, go give him ratings on Apple Podcasts, please. It really does make a difference. I've just every episode I talk to my audience about why this matters and it is a big deal and all of that. So we would love if you could please do that. Thank you so much. And so not only check Rob out, Vanderpump Robs, check out Patreon. You could also check me out on Patreon. I have recommended Vanderpump Robs on my Patreon. And so I think there's a way to click you can go to his Patreon from mine. But either way, we're going to be doing this collab, and so we would appreciate spreading the love. Thank you, Rob, so much for being here. This has been a blast, and can't wait to do it again. So
anytime.
Until next time, sending love to you and yours, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT Podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT Podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.